St. Stephen's College, which, as all of you would know, is the leading educational institution in India. The college has a great tradition, particularly tradition of contributing to peace and freedom. The college played a role in the freedom movement, but for want of time I will not go into details. I am extremely happy that we can share our thoughts even though from a distance, as facilitated by technology. We can talk to each other, and it is extremely important that people talk to each other in this century, because the alternative to talking to each other is hurting each other. Dialogue is most important. When we don't talk to each other, we feel that we are strangers to each other. When we don't understand each other, then we begin to develop all kinds of apprehensions and misunderstandings, biases and prejudices against people, which is one of the major reasons for the instability of peace all over the world. Now, to begin with, I would like to share two illustrations with you. They are simple illustrations, and I will develop the insights from these illustrations thereafter. The first is a Zen story from the tradition of Zen Buddhism, Z-E-N, in which a Zen master asks his disciples a question. What is the question? The question is, when do you know that the night is over, the night is ended, and morning has come? That's the question. What's the question? How do you know that the night is ended and morning has come? So his disciples tried to answer. One of them said, when I look at a tree from a distance and know that it is a mango tree and not a coconut tree, then I know that it is morning. The master said, no, that's not it. Another student said, when I see an animal from a distance and I know that it is a buffalo and not a cow, then I know that morning has come. The Zen master was still not happy. So several people attempted answers. And finally the Zen master said, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is, when I see somebody coming from a distance and I know that he is a brother and not a stranger, then morning is come. You understand? There is a deep insight in that story. The people around us are not strangers. They are our brothers and our sisters. And this is what is called overcoming alienation, about which I'll have something more to say later. Now, let me share the second illustration with you. This is the story of a carpenter. Now, there was a fairly wealthy man with two sons. After his death, his landed property was divided between the two brothers, and they were unhappy about the terms of division. So they fought bitterly between themselves and suddenly became enemies. They began to hate each other. Running right through the land, cutting the land virtually into two equal halves, was a river, small river. So the younger boy insisted on having the ancestral home. The elder brother shifted to the other side, built a house for himself. The enmity between the two brothers was so bitter that the younger boy did not even want to see his elder brother's face. So what he did was, he called the family carpenter, who was very close to his father, and told him, look, I want you to do something for me, and that is, I want you to erect a tall, high screen, wooden screen, so that I don't have to see my brother, I don't have to see his house, I don't have to see anything about him. Now, the family carpenter was extremely loyal to the father of the two children. He agreed to do the work. So a large quantity of timber was supplied to him. And what he did was, that instead of building a tall screen, he built a bridge across the river. So while the carpenter was building this bridge, the elder brother noticed that this bridge was being built, and suddenly he said to himself, look, my brother still loves me so much, and I must go and embrace him. So he ran from his house, came across, embraced his brother, and the story goes that the enmity between the two brothers ended that day. Now what I'm saying, what I mean by these two illustrations is that perceptions are extremely important in the process of peacemaking and peace maintenance. Very often, peace is undermined by wrong perceptions. Very often you find that when people want to create turbulence, they spread all kinds of rumors, and these rumors are all based on falsehood. Prejudices are created, and all prejudices are spread with the intention to create and intensify alienation. So you keep this at the back of your mind, and then I'll take you a little further forward. The idea of education is actually to promote peace. Now I often say that we should not talk about peace education, but education for peace. In fact, I changed the name of the course in NCRT. I told them and convinced them that it should not be called peace education, but education for peace. Because to me the very purpose of education is to spread a culture of peace. Now, what is the process of education? If you really think clearly on the matter, education is about bringing about a radical change in us, an inward change, a change in attitude, a change in perception, and a change in the capacity to improve the world in which we live. Let me give you another illustration from the life of Guru Nanak. The story goes that Guru Nanak had a very devoted disciple called Duni Chand, who lived in Lahore in those days. Duni Chand was a shopkeeper, and he was extremely fond of material wealth. And Guru Nanak knew that a person's spiritual growth will be stunted if he does not overcome this covetousness. So in order to teach him this lesson, Guru Nanak one day called Duni Chand and gave him a fine needle and said to him, look, you keep this needle and you give it to me when you come to the next world, where I will meet you. Duni Chand was very happy that the great Guru entrusted this fine needle with him. So in the evening he rushed back home, showed the needle to his wife and said, look, Guruji has given me his needle, I have to return it to him in the next world. And his wife said, you fool, how can you take anything into the next world? So that made Duni Chand think, and the story goes that he was completely changed in his attitude, in his value system, in his lifestyle thereafter. This is actually true education. Education which does not bring about a change from within is not education. Now, all of us have understood that the purpose of education is enlightenment. That is to say, we should be so educated as to be empowered to spread the light of humanity all around us. The human species is wonderful. We are by nature noble, but unfortunately, when we act the goodness in us, and particularly when we act in groups, in crowds, the essential goodness in us does not find expression, and we violate our conscience, our values, our moral principles when we act in that manner. Now, therefore, what happens in all such situations is a violation of an important principle called reciprocity. There are only two ways of functioning. One is unilateralism, that is, life has a one-way traffic. For example, if you slap somebody just like that, it's a unilateral action, right? If you spread rumors about somebody, it is a unilateral action. If you take something away from somebody, it's a unilateral action. All values are reciprocal. They are mutual. For example, love, to be genuine, a person must love and must be loved. Right? Light is reciprocal. The nature of light is that it is reciprocal. It goes and falls on an object. From there it is reflected back. Otherwise you will not see that object. So being enlightened means becoming reciprocal. Now peace is fundamentally reciprocal. For example, all religions teach that we should do to others what we would that they should do to us. That is to say, we should treat others as we would like to be treated. This is called reciprocity. You understand? Mutuality. Right? Now what happens is that often groups and nations, sometimes individuals also, reject reciprocity or mutuality and begin to act purely unilaterally. For example, preemptive war, that is first strike. That is clearly unilateral. Alright? All provocations are unilateral. Alright? Anything that hurts anyone is unilateral. Whatever enhances life, whatever creates comfort, whatever builds goodwill, whatever creates peace, all these things are reciprocal and mutual. So one of the things that we have to do is to make sure that at our individual levels we function on the principle of reciprocity, not on unilateralism. For example, at home, when you relate to your parents, you have to ask yourself whether you are functioning in a unilateral manner or whether you are behaving in a reciprocal manner. You expect your parents to take good care of you and provide for all your needs. Are you mindful of their needs? Are you sensitive towards them? The same thing in the classroom, the same thing in the school campus. And from there, this culture of reciprocity should spread everywhere. Now, there is a proverb which says, if there is light in your soul, then there will be love in your relationships. If there is love in your relationships, there will be harmony at home. If there is harmony at home, there will be law and order in the society. And if there is law and order in the society, there will be peace in the world. Okay? So where does peace in the world begin? Where does it originate? It originates in your soul, from the light within your soul. And this is the most important insight I have been able to gather in all my life. So education must enable us to kindle that light within so that all our actions, especially in our relationships with others, express that light and not the darkness within us. Okay? So that's something that I want to emphasize. Now, the purpose of education is, in my opinion, total growth. Light is a symbol of completeness. Light cannot be half or quarter. Light is always full. I mean, there may not be enough light to illumine the whole world, but every ray of light is full in itself. No ray of light shines half. That's impossible, right? So, to me, light is a symbol of total growth or fullness or completeness. This is the reason why in all religions, light is the foremost symbol. For example, in India we have the Hindu festival Diwali. which is a festival of light. And even though I'm not a Hindu, I'm a Christian priest, I enjoy Diwali because Diwali reminds me of the fact that I need to have that light inside of me, and all my words and deeds must continually express that inner light. And that's when my life becomes Diwali. When the life of everyone becomes Diwali, there will be peace, no question about it. So, what you should aim at through the time you study in your school and later on when you move into higher education is to develop yourself completely. Now, what do I mean by this? All of us know that a human person is a complex of body, mind and soul or spirit, right? All of us know this. A human being is a body, a mind and a soul, right? Now, total growth or holistic growth means that we should develop our physical abilities, we should develop our intellectual abilities, we must develop our emotional wealth, we must also develop our spiritual resources. That is when we grow in a total or complete or holistic manner. And I am totally convinced that a person who develops in this holistic or total or complete manner will always prefer peace to peacelessness, peace to conflict. He will be an agent of peace. She will be an ambassador of peace. Now, I must emphasize that in our times, we simply cannot sit and expect peace to be made available to us by somebody else. This is what I mean by people becoming consumers of peace. We must become creators of peace. Okay? For example, the farmers create food, the fruits that we eat, the cereals that we consume, the milk that we drink, all these things are produced by the farmers. Okay? Now, they don't simply sit and say, well, let food come and fall into my mouth. In the same manner, if you and I want to live in a peaceful society, we have to assume responsibility for spreading a culture of peace. Alright? Now, in order to become agents of peace, in order to be effective ambassadors of peace, we have to develop in this all-round manner that I talked about. Now, why do I say this? Growth, and this concept is extremely important. Human growth is necessarily harmonious. I am going to explain what I mean by this. You know, harmony is a metaphor from music. Okay? Now, in music, all notes have to be played in a state of mutual reciprocity, right? Those who are playing in an orchestra cannot go tangentially on their own paths, right? They have to reinforce each other, they have to blend with each other. That's how harmony is created. Now, our person, the human person, is a harmony. We are a harmony of body, mind and spirit. Alright? If you have more than one entity, then harmony becomes important. If I am living alone, if I am sitting alone in a room, then harmony is not important. But if one of my colleagues walks into my office, now there are about 4 or 5 colleagues sitting here, then immediately the question of harmony will come into being. Because human beings are so designed as to be reciprocal towards each other. Now suppose I have not developed my emotional and my spiritual resources. Then I may think that persons coming in that they are a nuisance. I may feel negatively towards them. A person who has developed fully experiences a continual enlargement of his sympathies. And people who till then seemed strangers or a source of nuisance or mischief or even enmity will all look different. Now, this is what we mean by inner light. The goodness that we express in our day-to-day life is nothing but the expression of our inner light. Now, suppose we don't develop that inner light, what happens? You've studied in physics that darkness is the absence of light, isn't it? So, if we don't have light within us, we will still do things, we will still act, but our actions will not reveal light, they will reveal darkness. For example, when we hurt people, when we malign others, when we are indifferent to their needs, when we belittle people, we are not expressing light but darkness. All forms of conflict are expressions of darkness. The universal craving for violence, the popularity of war. War has become a television game. One of the greatest depravities of modern times is that violence has been, and human suffering has been turned into television entertainment. I think all of us should be ashamed of this fact. And I would urge all of you to shun such television channels. Human suffering cannot be entertainment. You don't want to be hurt, you don't want to suffer, then how can you enjoy the suffering of a fellow human being? Right? Now, all these prove the points that I have been trying to make in some detail, that unless and until we develop the light within, and I said light is reciprocal, right? The ability to feel compassion, feel a sense of identity towards others, the ability to treat others as we would like to be treated ourselves. This to me is a solid foundation of peace. Now I'll say one thing more and perhaps stop so that you can ask me questions, and that is, when you review human history so far, say in the last 3,000 years, the strangest thing that you will certainly come across is this: that humankind, the species to which we belong, has made tremendous, colossal, humongous investment in creating conflicts and waging war. Human history is nothing but the history of warfare. The number of lives sacrificed, and they are millions, the amount of resources invested and wasted, the propaganda unleashed, the amount of work done, war mobilization. So our species has invested its greatest genius and maximum resources in undermining peace, in creating conflicts and in waging war, right? But the irony is this, that even though everyone individually wants to live in peace, even though in our public professions we prefer peace rather than war, the fact is that we do not make any investment in peace. We hardly make an attempt to propagate a culture of peace. Take education, for example. I told you at the beginning that I was the chairperson of the National Focus Group on Peace Education as part of the curriculum review in 2005. My group and I worked very hard and produced a very outstanding position paper on education for peace. But this paper was not implemented because sufficient curriculum time could not be found, or there was no time or resources to reorient teachers. As a result, nothing has happened. Now, on a rough estimate, the world over, $1 billion is spent on arms and armaments. $1 billion per day. So you can imagine the total investment on this buying weapons alone. In case there is an armed conflict, mobilization, etc. is different. I'm talking about the world arms industry and trade. Not even 0.1% of that is invested in making peace. Now, it is this irony that we have to engage. As young people, you have to worry about this because it's your future. You must live in a world of peace because war, for example, is one of the greatest pollutants of the environment. It fills the theatre of war these days, even with radiation. Even when nuclear weapons are not used, many of the artillery shells, for example, are tipped with radioactive material. So the kind of poison that is injected into the system through armed conflict is a matter of great worry. And for me, the greatest sadness is that in all wars, the people who have to go and die are poor people. The rich never die. So war is an obscene game in which games are played with the lives of poor people as pawns. I believe this is hugely immoral. So look at it from any way you want. This is something that we cannot accept. The only condition in which you can develop yourself fully, completely, joyfully is peace. The world over, everybody accepts the fact that peace is a precondition for development. Indeed, the best definition of peace is that peace is shalom, which is a Hebrew word, and in Hebrew the word shalom means all-round welfare of people, the total welfare of people. That is shalom, S-H-A-L-O-M. So, peace is vital for the total welfare of the human species. On the one hand, we have crass, abject poverty. In India alone, 500 million people retire for the night on hungry stomachs. Globally, there is more than 1.2 billion people who are languishing in abject poverty. If 10% of the money that is spent in armaments can be diverted to poverty and alleviation, human species would be much better. If a small percentage can be diverted into providing safe drinking water, the world will be a heaven. Unfortunately, our priorities are wrong. And as young people, you must raise your voice against this inhuman waste of resources in a world which is riddled with poverty and human suffering. It is your fundamental right to insist on having a world of peace where you can move around freely, where you can live free from fear, and where your needs are met. And it is incredible how our world is being eaten up by the monster of fear. Wherever I go, I find people living in fear. It doesn't matter which country you go to. I've gone to several countries, including the United States. Everywhere people are living in insecurity. And that itself is very costly. In order to secure your security, you have to spend a lot of money. Now, there is no alternative to creating peace. I believe that propagating a culture of peace is the most fundamental agenda, and that is why I'm saying we should not call this peace education, but education for peace. Why? Because we must insist that the very purpose of education is to propagate a culture of peace. Educated people must be agents of peace. They should have the maturity and wisdom not only to live in peace, but also to make sure that peace prevails everywhere. So I think with that I will stop and then interact with you in terms of whatever questions you may have to ask. All right? Does it make sense what I've said to you? Have I communicated some thoughts at least? All right. You see, distance is always a problem. So I know that there are some difficulties, but and also we are strangers. You know, communication becomes a problem when we meet for the first time. if we meet for a second time, it would be better. Third time would be even better. So that's how it is. I know there are difficulties, but even so, I can see your faces. So from that, I know that you're very good listeners, and I'm happy that you are. Okay? Good afternoon. I didn't get your name.
My name is Ishika Kumar.
Shikha. Thank you, Shikha. Good to meet you.
Same here. There is truly so much peace, there is truly so much conflict and disorder in today's world, right?
Yes.
Do you believe peace to be realistically achievable?
Pardon?
Do you believe peace to be realistically achievable in today's world?
Now, this is why, towards the end of my presentation, I emphasize the fact that we have not made enough attempts to make peace prevail. Actually, if you really know how much work goes into disturbing peace, you will certainly know that peace is the natural condition. Conflicts, peacelessness, etc. are unnatural. So it's a lot easier to affirm and defend peace. But unfortunately, the systems we have created, including international politics, even domestic politics, is such that people prefer war, tension, violence to peace. Now, it's very simple. You will get from life what you want. If you want peace, you will get it. If you want conflict, you will get it. So, this is why I'm emphasizing education. Education must change the existing taste so that as individuals, as groups, as nations, we prefer peace rather than conflict. And if that happens, making peace prevail is incredibly easy. Today, of course, it looks very difficult or even unattainable because wherever we turn, we find conflicts. But please understand, these conflicts are artificial, they are man-made, they are fomented, particularly by the international arms industry and arms sales mafia, because their huge profits lie in this. If we can make even half the effort they make to destabilize peace, we can win the war in favor of peace. There's no question about it. I'm an optimist as far as establishing peace is concerned.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Hello, sir. My name is Yashasvi.
Yashasvi, good to meet you.
Every religion preaches peace. However, most of the wars currently are religion-based wars. Why does it occur like that?
Wonderful. I'm glad you asked this question. You see, it's very interesting that whenever war is declared or war is prepared for, people take the name of God. And every religion does it. I consider this to be a great obscenity and a great offense to God, because God is love, God is truth, God is compassion, God is justice. God is not violence, God is not war, God is not injustice. So, there is a difference between godliness and religiosity. The religious establishments, all religions are the same in this respect. Religious establishments are like any other industry. They are man-made, they are man-managed, they have their own vested interests, and usually religious conflicts arise mainly because people emphasize only differences, superficial differences. Now the question is, why is it that superficial differences, which are minimum, are emphasized and the large core of shared spirituality is overlooked? It is because the leaders of religious communities have a vested interest in herding their people together so that their loyalty is permanently guaranteed towards this handful of people. So it is nothing but the selfish vested interest of a handful of so-called religious leaders that's creating all this problem. And this is a problem because as lay people, you and I, we accept this most stupid arrangement that we have to depend on religious leaders for our understanding of the faith, for squaring up our equations with God, that we need these people as the middlemen. This is completely untrue. This is a false teaching resorted to by religious leaders in order to manipulate the members of the faithful community. We have to come out of this religious slavery. And when you come out of your religious slavery, you will find that we are all members of the human species. God has not created religions. God has created human beings. And today we must claim the freedom and the right to love one another as members of the human species, period. And if at all you practice religion, if at all I practice religion, I am very clear. It will be only that aspect of religion which enables me to love my neighbors, whether my neighbors are Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, I don't care. They are human beings. They are my brothers and sisters. Alright? Now, any religion or any religious leader who preaches violence, who instigates violence, must be seen as a contradiction of that religion, as a liability to that religion. Right? So, it is not religion that is creating the problem, but the vested interests that have hijacked the religious establishment, and they know nothing about the religion they are presiding over. They are using it for ulterior motives, and they have succeeded in misleading large numbers of people to believe that they are the reliable custodians of the religion. They are not. They are the enemies of that religion. So unless and until this truth spreads among the people, we will not be able to liberate people from their religious slavery. Only slaves are made to fight people. Free people, free thinking people will not hate, spite and kill each other. Right? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Father.
Good
My
afternoon.
name is Anirudh.
Anirudh, it's nice to see you.
And I
Are you a sports
question.
person? Are you a sports person? Which game do you play?
I play football.
I thought so. Anyway, carry on.
Okay.
Sir, there's this question that's been bothering me since the time you started
Yes.
the talk. The last century has been a century of destruction. There's been World War I, World War II, then there's the Gulf War, any war you name it. There have been personalities like Hitler and Stalin, and then there's even been Osama bin Laden, who were all very destructive in their own way. But if you have, if you look at their background, the place from where they have come from, and what all they have achieved, if you look, for example, if you take Hitler, he was a very, very good painter, though his paintings had been rejected. And if you take Stalin, he was an amazing poet, but even he was rejected. Then if you take Osama bin Laden, he was amazing at studies. He was even better than President Obama at studies. So, Father, your comments on this?
What exactly is the question? Can you crystallize your question?
The question is, even though all of these people have been so destructive in the past,
Alright, okay, I get your point.
and the things they have achieved, so how do you put it? Are these people good with the society in some way or bad?
Okay, that's fine. I think your question is, why is it that eminently talented people end up creating so much of destruction and suffering and pain? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Father, exactly.
Alright, okay, let's think about this. Now, the fact that somebody has an outstanding gifts, you refer to Hitler's ability to paint. I had in fact one of his paintings with me. He was not a genius, but he was reasonably good, and his ambition was to become an artist. Whether it is Obama bin Laden or many other people who have practiced violence that I can think of, say even Velupulli Prabhakaran, for example, the Tamil leader in Sri Lanka, they were all geniuses, there's no question about it. Now, the pursuit of evil is not a small thing. In fact, from ancient Greek times, this has been recognized that human genius can express itself in two contrary ways. One is the way of evil, and the other is the way of goodness. It's also recognized in history that it is easier to express one's genius through evil rather than good deeds because, and this may quite surprise you, because strangely, human beings have a secret admiration for crime, for violence, and so on and so forth. For example, why is it that we enjoy so much watching scenes of crime on television, scenes of violence on television? CNN IBN, for example, transformed war into a television art from 1991 in the Iraq War. It was actually the first time it was happening. And why did it become such a huge global practice? Because it was found out that everybody enjoyed watching violence on television. So we must understand that if certain people are tempted to express themselves through evil, violence, wickedness, we also have a role to play in this. We, in the sense, the human psyche. The second thing I want to emphasize is that there is always an interaction between the individual genius and the particular historical context. Now, for example, suppose Hitler had lived in a very different period in history. The Germany of Hitler's ascent seemed to have been cut out for his kind of a genius. The German people were smarting under the unfair conditions of the Versailles Treaty. They were suffering from a huge sense of deprivation, underprivilege. So that's a condition in which a whole people look for a messiah. And Hitler knew the art of projecting himself as a messiah. So there was a harmony between the individual talent and the particular historical context, right? Now that's why I'm saying, when I talk about the importance of spreading the culture of peace, what I mean is this: we should also sanitize the context in which people live and grow up so that their geniuses are not distorted and directed towards evil. You understand? It can happen to you, it can also happen to me. For example, if I grow up in a situation of persistent injustice and oppression, then I will become spiteful, revengeful, and my personality may find expression through deeds of violence. Alright? I'm not saying that every individual is only a plaything in the hands of circumstances. I'm saying that circumstances do influence us, but it's also possible for individuals to overcome the distortions of the context through spiritual abilities. That is why I also emphasize the importance of growing up in an all-round manner so that we develop our spiritual resources. If you don't develop your spiritual, emotional, intellectual resources, then you become a bit of clay that the given context shapes in whichever way it wants. You will not be able to cut out your own destiny, right? So I hope I have answered your concern. And your concern is very, very important. It's historically true, but there are reasons for it, some of which I have suggested. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I must say that all of you are asking very interesting and important questions, and I'm very, very happy with the time that we are having today.
My name is Tanya.
Tanya, how are you?
My question to you is, what if I, as an individual, is
should I just not take any action against that because I'm a peaceful person and I can reach peace?
Good. You're facing the question of individual injustice that a person may suffer from time to time. Now, this is certainly the case, and I think the majority of people would have personal experience of this. And the question is, what is the best way to handle this? Now, in olden days, there used to be a proverb which said, a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye. Alright? If somebody has done injustice to you, you inflict the same amount of injustice on the other person. So there is parity of injustice, and the advantage is that you don't have any psychological pain thereafter. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, the father of India, the leader of our national movement, the greatest, the tallest leader 20th century produced, he used to say that if everybody practices this dictum of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, the whole nation will be full of blind people and toothless people. Nothing will be left. So therefore he says that that's not the way. Repaying injustice with injustice is not the way. Okay? So let's be clear about it. Then what is the way? Now very often my own experience is that people indulge in injustice out of 2-3 conditions. One is their own insecurity. A person who is insecure wants to relate to others by creating some problems because he does not know how to relate normally. At the same time, he or she wants to relate. So it is this abnormal way of relating that he or she knows. The second part of it is, it may be jealousy, for example. You may have an achievement or a talent which is appreciated by others, the other person may not have it. And therefore a negative reaction comes about. The third could be that there is something in you that provokes the other person. Who knows? Right? So in which case there is a need for self-examination. What we have to do is put together 1 or 2 instances or 2 or 3 instances in which such provocations happen and look for a common factor. If there is a common factor, then almost certain that you have also contributed to it. Now, in my own experience, I have found that the breakthrough in any situation of interpersonal conflict or a sense of injustice being inflicted on oneself is changing oneself, because we really have no power or authority over others. We cannot change others, but we can certainly change ourselves. But unfortunately, this is not what people want. People want to change others and the whole world, but they will not change themselves. So this is why Gandhiji said, to quote him again, he said, be the change that you want to see in others. Alright? At any rate, it is certainly true, and I want to give you that comfort, that if you are finding yourself in a situation of interpersonal conflict, you don't have to lose heart. It's possible to achieve a breakthrough, but you must take the initiative. Enable that person, first of all, to understand that you have been hurt, and find out whether that action, the action on the part of the other person, is based on some misunderstanding or some negativity, and accordingly try and help him or her out of it. And when you do that, you will grow tall in your stature. So now from being grieved, you will feel affirmed. Okay? So I want to thank you for that very interesting question.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Sagrika Sneha.
Sagarika, good to see you.
I have to ask you a question.
Yes, please.
There is a lot of peacelessness among rich and wealthy people. So how can poverty eradication lead to peace?
Alright, very good. Actually, there's a connection between poverty and war. So you asked a very important question from a historical point of view. Now, I'll give you an illustration. citizens of America are reluctant to fight. It's one of the most politically sensitive issues for Americans, the American government, to get involved with international conflict. The reason is that the life of a citizen of America is extremely precious. I'm sure that's the case with Russia also. The life of citizens in all developed countries, rich countries, is valuable, is indispensable. So no life must be destroyed or lost through conflict. So you find that there is a correlation between affluence and peace. People who have or people who can afford quality of life want to live long. They don't want to die young. Therefore, there is a powerful motivation in economic development to create peace. At the same time, and that's a paradox, in some of the countries that we know of, it is arms industry that plays a large role in the economic development of that country or those countries. And therefore, while they want peace for their societies, they want war abroad. Now, for example, the Second World War was fought, according to the great rhetoric of Winston Churchill, who was the leader of Great Britain at that time. He said that the Second World War was the war to end all wars. The world was made to believe that after the Second World War, there would be no wars. Sorry. But that has not happened. There have been at least 300 armed conflicts after 1945. But the main thing is that the theatres of war shifted from the Euro-American bloc to Africa and Asia. Why? Because the life of an African, the life of a nation is far cheaper. Okay? So, if we can abolish poverty, we can certainly contribute to world peace. If peace is maintained, a society will develop. If society develops, there will be disincentive for war, and this is the best cycle for peace. But unfortunately, this is not the priorities of governments in Africa and Asia. Because political leaders have a vested interest in perpetuating poverty. For all that they say in public, nobody is seriously interested in alleviating poverty, because if poverty is eradicated, there are serious problems. And I do not want to go into it because it's a huge subject in itself. And also I'm talking to an international audience. I have, the subject has its own sensitivity. But I think you put the finger on the pulse. There is a direct connection between poverty and war, or peace and quality of life. Right? So we should all work towards making quality of life available and affordable to as many people in the world as possible. There is no reason why in the current day world more than 1 billion people are living in abject poverty. If that issue can be addressed, it will be a major step towards peace.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, most welcome.
Good afternoon, Father.
Good
My name
afternoon.
is Radhika.
Good afternoon.
So, as you have mentioned before, that everyone has some inner light inside of them. They have peace in their soul. In this world of war and destruction, if one loses their inner light, my question is, how can one find their inner light? How can you be peace with yourself?
Very, very perceptive question. The only zone over which no other human being can have any influence or authority, control or access is your inner life. Your inner life is completely protected. If at all your inner life is invaded, it has to be with your own complicity. For example, a lot of useless stuff can get into you from the media, only if you watch it, right? Or for that matter, if you give up watching movies of violence, right? So the light within will never die out. That's the mystery of our creation. Since God is light and since we are all creations of God, irrespective of what religion we practice, which country we live in, I believe that every human being is a child of God, and therefore there is the light of God within every human being. And because that light is God's creation, no human being has the authority or ability to put out that light. Now, as an individual, you have the freedom and the right to let that light not shine. That's your choice. You have also equally the choice of expressing that light through whatever you say, whatever you do, or whatever you don't do. You understand? So, even if you are living in a society of violence, you can protect your inner life from being invaded and corrupted by this violence. Even if you are living in a war zone, no human being, no authority in the world can actually fill your heart or mind with hate. That's entirely your choice. You understand? So this is where human autonomy, human freedom is so important and so valuable. But unfortunately, many people don't know this. Therefore, they simply open themselves up to the world around, lap up everything, end up corrupted and helpless, and they say, oh, what could I have done? After all, I lived in such and such times. I could not have known and done anything better. That's not true. That is certainly not true. I know many individuals who lived in Hitler's Germany who behaved very differently from Hitler and his followers. Some of the outstanding persons like Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a great saint. Of course, he died in the Nazi concentration camp in 1942. But the poems that he wrote when he was in the concentration camp, the books that he wrote, I have read all of them. Most marvelous experience. And he preserved the purity of soul in the midst of all that madness. So it's possible for us as individuals to do this, right? That's where our power and our personality must come. And that's where our education should empower us, right? Very, very good question.
Thank you, Father.
Most welcome.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Alisha.
Here it is good afternoon, but it's good morning for you, therefore good morning. Thank you. Good to see you.
Other Terence has said that there's no peace because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. So how can we make
Can you give us a quotation again? Mother Teresa said there is no peace.
That's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other.
Your voice is
So
coming
how
broken.
can we make people
Your voice is coming broken.
so hard?
Ah,
Other Terence has said
yes.
there is no peace because we have forgotten that we belong to each other.
All right.
How
Then.
can we make people realize that we belong to each other and bring peace?
All right. Okay. Very good question. Very good question. I had the opportunity to interact with Mother Teresa on many occasions, and one of the photographs I really cherish is my photograph with Mother Teresa. So I have very fond memories of that wonderful, wonderful human being. So I'm glad that you asked me this question. How can we make people feel that they belong to each other? That's a question, right? Is that the question? All right. Is that the question? All right. Okay. Now, you see, the thing is, there is a climate of opinion that we create. Every society, every institution, every family, every nation creates a climate of opinion. or an outlook, right? Now, for example, when I was growing up in Kerala, all the homes surrounding my house were Hindu homes. Now, we were always encouraged to go visit them, spend time with them, and we attended each other's festivals. If there was a prayer in my house, or members of all the homes, non-Christian homes came to my house, there was no problem at all. We never felt that we were different from each other and we belong to different religions and therefore we should not participate in each other's ceremonies and functions, right? I never missed a temple festival in my locality and I was encouraged to go and attend this. So that was a climate of opinion. That climate of opinion has now changed. Today, I don't think Christian young people go and attend Hindu festivals. I don't think Hindus will come and attend a prayer meeting if I hold it in my house. What has happened is that the climate of opinion has changed. Now, how has the climate of opinion changed? It has been changed by human beings. Human beings have sown seeds of alienation, hatred, suspicion, distrust. Alright? This is a disservice, this is an atrocity we have done to ourselves. So the solution also lies in our hands. I am a Christian, but I claim for myself the right to relate freely with every human being on earth, including those who do not like me, those who do not agree with me, right? Otherwise I am not a Christian. If you are a child of God, you cannot feel that anyone else is beyond the reach of your love and affection. Now I am going to give you a reference. It's a little difficult, but you try to follow this. There's a great Jewish philosopher called Martin Buber. He has a book called I-Thou. I'm going to give a quotation from Martin Buber where he says, the great slogan of the French Revolution was liberty, equality, fraternity, right? Then he says, liberty traveled westwards and found its home in the United States where it degenerated into license. Equality traveled eastwards and made Eastern Europe its house, its home, and created a violent, faceless mass of people. Then he says, there were no takers for fraternity. Fraternity is the feeling of belonging together. Fraternity is the principle of kinship. So in India, we have this saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You know what it means? It means that the whole of Vasudha, the whole of the created order, the whole world must be seen as one family. That was the insight. But of course, in the name of the same religion, people are being divided. You understand? But that doesn't mean that Hinduism has changed. It's a great religion, it's a noble religion, its insights are truly great. And I have myself benefited from it, I have no hesitation in continuing to benefit from it. Whatever is good and beautiful from any tradition, we must be free to accept. Okay? So, it is not difficult to promote a sense of belonging together. Now, I have visited Mother Teresa's home for the destitute and dying, and I have found people from all religions living there harmoniously together. And in the midst of human suffering, people belong together. Likewise, I visited the leprosarium maintained by Graham Staines, who was killed in Manoharpur of Orissa. There were 86 lepers in the leprosarium. They were from different religions. There were Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, etc. They all lived peacefully together. They had no problem in belonging together. So if you leave people alone, they will immediately develop a sense of belonging together. It's only when others work on them and corrupt and poison their minds that walls rise between people, they begin to misunderstand, hate each other. Alright? So belonging together is a natural state. Hating one another is extremely unnatural. Okay, good question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Good morning, sir. My name Priyanti.
Niyati.
Priyanti.
P-R-I?
Y-A-N-T-I.
I don't know. Priyati, okay.
Sir, the Roman Empire is an era of development, but there has been a lot of destruction in this era. So why is it called the era of development?
Yes. Well, actually, it's also called the age of peace, Pax Romana, the Roman peace. But the Roman peace was maintained with a lot of violence. Peace was maintained by the Roman Empire by suppressing others and suppressing resistance and rebellion. Alright? Now, that is not peace as we understand it. Peace is not the absence of rebellion or resistance. Peace is a positive condition. That's why I refer to the Jewish concept of shalom, which is positive, total, comprehensive welfare. Right. Now, yes, you're right in saying that there was development during the Roman Empire. But development for whom? Perhaps you know that around the time of Jesus, there were 6 lakh slaves in Rome alone, in one city. There were more slaves in Rome than Roman citizens. The same was true about, shall we say, Athens during the time of Plato and Aristotle. There were more slaves than free citizens. So if you have the power to exploit the labor and hard work of others, and you can inflict injustice on them, you deprive them of their wages and their legitimate rights, and you accumulate everything yourself, then of course you will create a semblance of wealth, semblance of progress. Unfortunately, that is not progress. Now, for example, in our own country, in India, progress cannot be understood in terms of the number of billionaires that we have. We must think of the 1.25 billion people. What is the quality of life they have? Even if we have 1,000 billionaires and this 1 billion or more people are not benefiting from it, then we are not a developed country. There must be certain indices of development to which every citizen must have access. Gandhiji said the development of India must be measured in terms of the last person, the least and the lost, the talisman, Gandhi's talisman. Alright? So we can't say that a country is developed simply because it produces wealth. Wealth must be converted into welfare, and that is where many nations are lacking. And as far as I am concerned, only welfare is a reliable indicator to the true progress of a society. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
One more question. Sometimes people make war the reason to achieve peace. So how is that peace in true sense?
Well, human mind is capable of a lot of deception. You know, there was a great thinker in the 13th century and 4th century. His name was Bishop Augustine of Hippo, who wrote the classic work, The City of God, where he says that in future all wars will be fought in the name of peace, and the preaching of peace and the preparation for war will take place at the same time. This was written in the 4th century AD, more than 1600 years ago, right? Now this points to the hypocrisy in international relations, because international relations are built on mutual distrust. Nobody trusts anyone else. The amount of espionage that takes place, the amount of information gathering, spying that is taking place. Nobody trusts anyone. So realpolitik is based not on trust but on distrust. It is based on the use of force, not on the culture of peace. For example, which are the countries respected in the international arena? countries that can inflict maximum destruction, right? They are called superpowers. Now, how are they superpowers? I would rather have proper powers than superpowers. You understand? Unfortunately, there is no preference for proper powers. And India must become a proper power, not a superpower as far as I am concerned. Young people like you are my hope. Right? So let's not get carried away by what others are saying. Now, when I came to Delhi in 1971, there was this Indo-Pak war going on. It lasted only for about 10-11 days. And I tell you, it was such a suffocating experience. War is an agony, and no human being should be subjected to it. Right? This earth must be disinfected of the virus of violence and war. And in your generation, you must clamor for peace. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. I have another question.
Yes, good afternoon.
How strong connection between imparting education and peace?
A connection between
Imparting education and peace.
and peace. Oh, well, of course, that's the whole idea of education for peace. Now, if education is imparted in the way it is imparted today, I'm afraid we may not make much progress. We may make marginal progress. And that is why I've been emphasizing from the very beginning that the shaping purpose of education must be to create a culture of peace. Now, at the moment, what is happening is certain peace-related values are talked about and taught, or they are integrated into classroom transactions. But to what extent are these peace values practiced outside is completely ignored. Secondly, we must also understand the synergy between the climate or the culture of the school and the culture that prevails outside the school. A child, for example, is given certain peace values in the school, and then the child goes home, goes back into the society, say for example watches television, and is exposed to something completely different. So in a minute's time, whatever is learned in the classroom evaporates. The lasting impression is that of the media, is that of the society, is that of the print media, what you read in the newspapers, or the rumors that you hear, and the discussions that you have with your peer group outside. All of these are different from and contrary to the peace values that you learn in the classroom. And that's where the problem lies. Okay? Now, for example, all of you in course of time will have your families, your homes, right? My humble request to all of you is, please create a culture of peace in your own home. Many homes are peaceless. When I was chairing the National Focus Group on Peace Education, I had a survey conducted in 4 states in South India. And one of the questions asked was, how many of you are coming from homes where domestic violence is experienced? Do you know that 60% of the students interviewed said that they came from homes where there was domestic violence? Now that is epidemic. It's a huge problem. Now how can a school by itself promote a culture of peace if there is no collaboration, no harmony between the school and the home? So the society on the one hand, the school on the other, home. It's a kind of triangle, the triangle of peace. So I would request all of you to think seriously about this and do whatever you can in your times to take this agenda of peace forward. Okay? Good.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
Hello, Father. I have one question.
Yes.
Why war is agony? Why isn't it practicing violence and believing in hate so much easier than believing in love or in confidence?
Oh, very simple it is. That's the kind of system we have created. You know, I have read a lot on war and violence. I have not come across a single book by any political philosopher who argues that war or violence can be avoided in international relations. This is a dogma. Nobody questions that dogma, right? Now, in spite of all that people are talking about, in spite of many peace conferences that are taking place at various levels, the pursuit for greater and more destructive arms, more and more sophisticated arms, and the investment in the war industries is all going up, not coming down, right? Now, it is not easier actually to fight wars. It looks easier because, as I said before, the true victims of war are poor people. Somehow we don't have the eyes to see the suffering of the poor. If something happens to a very rich man, the whole world will talk about it. For example, when the Indian Airlines aircraft was hijacked to Kandahar, the whole nation talked about it. 167 passengers. But suppose a train is hijacked with 1,000 passengers. No, people will not be worried that much because there's a class difference. All right? Now, I remember addressing a peace conference, a world peace conference in Delhi some years ago. And I was a keynote speaker, and I told them that I have an unfailing formula for creation of world peace. And everybody became very curious. They said, what is that formula? By the way, the then president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, was also present at that time. He was presiding over it. So I said that my formula is simple, which is that the persons who decide to wage the war must fight the war. Then there will be no war fought. Because in the world today, very important people, very, very important political leaders, military leaders, decide to fight war. Not one of them is affected by war. Who goes, fights and gets killed? The poorest of the poor. Right? Unless and until this changes. That's why I said, because of affluence in America and greater awareness of human rights, fighting war, waging war abroad is becoming more and more difficult as a political option. The same thing must happen everywhere. Okay? So, this whole hypocrisy of fighting wars at the expense of others. Now, who gains from war? Always the ruling elite, the economic political elite come out of every war better off. Whereas the poor people end up more and more devastated. Families are ruined. Houses in which there is only a single breadwinner is destroyed. The society does not take good care of them. What happens to the people who are maimed? In the Kargil war alone, 10,000 people were maimed. And nobody hears anything about them. The human cost of war, the collateral damages, the psychological trauma that the fighters, the soldiers suffer, all these are unspoken tragedies. And I think we must face the full horror of war. And none of us has gone into the theatre of war. I experienced it in Delhi accidentally because I happened to be here at that time. It is terrible. I mean, it suffocates you. It makes life unbearable. Not a single bomb fell on Delhi. Even the night curfew was enough. Even the anxiety that something might happen next moment was enough. Even the rumbling of the tanks on the main road near the place I lived, that was enough to rattle my bones. Then what happens on the theatre of war? It's most unfortunate.